I'm going to jump on this bandwagon. I've been nagged by my husband for, I don't know, probably since the first of the year, if not longer. Every time I'm watching Flosstube and he's home, he's like, why haven't you done one yourself? So, here we go. I'm gonna do it in 3 parts. I've got whips that I started last year. I cross-stitched on and off since I was little. I've sewn since I was about 6 or 7. And I remember doing one of those little cross-stitch kits that was a teddy bear in the little like 4-inch hoop. And every so often I'd pick it up, and I remember even as a teenager disliking Ada. 14 count felt too big. I wanted tiny, and I didn't know how to get it, and so I would check the kits every so often, and of course, as any longtime cross stitchers know, Joann's and Michael's, for the uninitiated cross stitcher or the starting cross stitcher, you thought that was the only place to go and you had to get a kit, and they always were 14 count or they weren't something that I wanted. And so I just never really picked up much, never mind actually making anything. I'd make the random little kit that I found that piqued my interest, but I didn't really do much. And then 2 Christmases ago, my husband got me a tapestry style printed canvas kit, and I started doing that, and I was looking up frames or something and stumbled into the world of Facebook cross-stitch groups and everybody's suggestions on this designer or that designer, and where to go for fabrics and building your own kits, and found the world of HAED. And so my very first cross stitch piece that I started out with was Pirate's Retreat by Mary Thompson. And I hit 4% yesterday. So my husband adores anything pirate related. I started out thinking I was going to do this with tent stitching, and I didn't even make it all the way to the monkey's hat and hated the back. Was frustrated with it. Started ripping it out, cut the fabric, so I got a new piece of fabric. And started over doing it 1/1 on 28 count. Jobelin. And I liked it much better. I've experimented with 1-strand loop starts and stitching in, color block as you can get with a HAED. I mean, there's probably 50 colors just in the parrot's head. And that's about a 20 by 20 block. So, yeah, you have that. Then my next piece, I ran across Words to Live by Sal, which was basically finished. So I ordered all 13 parts, and I was like, black, not so hot. So let's start doing it with navy. And there we go. I got the border pretty much done last year, but even, I think this is 32 count. I didn't write it down. Even going over 2, it's with navy. It's killing me. But, you know, it is what it is. And in all of that, I discovered the Harry Potter Sal, Letters from Hogwarts. And I did that as a secret mystery with my friend, and I'm gonna have to put the picture up in the corner if I can figure that out, or at least insert it. So I started sending her the clues and genericizing them just enough that she couldn't hopefully figure out what the clues were. And, you know, so every 2 months it was, hey, here's this clue. Which would you pick of these options? And then I would stitch whatever she picked. And I knew she loved Harry Potter because we had the theater production, the live theater production here up until COVID. And she had gone with family, she'd gone by herself, I think. She'd gone several times. She talked about it, was disappointed that one of our wine trains up north of us had a Harry Potter themed wine evening, and by the time she found out about it, it was sold out. So I knew she liked Harry Potter, but I couldn't figure out from her profile if she had picked the correct house. So I took a chance. Finished it off as a wall banner, sent it to her just after Christmas, and turns out she'd never done her house, and so she ran the tests and she picked correctly. So that was interspersed with this, and it was kind of my, if you will, focus piece last year, because I was really trying to get it done for Christmas, and I finished it like New Year's Eve, and then I had to fully finish it. So and in the process of all of that, as you'll see in my Maynia starts from last year, I started a second one of that project because my husband also likes Harry Potter and really, really liked the idea of designing his own rooms, letters, and having me stitch them. And so I'm doing a second one, totally different for the most part. There's a couple little spots that are the same, but not much. Then in searching patterns and things, I I was looking for something that was a little on the nautical side. Anytime we travel, we enjoy going to places that have waterfalls or just water in general. We live in the Bay Area of California, so you know, we're near water a significant amount of the time. And I thought it would be nice to have a water piece. I was looking for waterfalls, didn't find waterfalls, but I found Tropical Treasures by John Enright, charted by HAED. And I haven't really gotten to the water yet, but I also dipped my foot into dyeing fabric for the first time with this piece, and took a 22 count piece of white hardanger, and a couple colors of blues, and dyed it, and the dark end was on the vertical side and I wanted it on the bottom, so then I flipped the fabric around and dyed it again to get it darker. And really enjoyed how it turned out. And you know, so I haven't gotten to the blue threads really, but I have gotten blue on there. And then I learned in a Facebook group about the free for a short time pandemic pattern by Long Dog Samplers, and wasn't planning on doing any more starts, but decided, okay, I like it. I can do monochromatic. So I have had to restart this. It was about the same time that I found Pattern Keeper. And even though long dot samplers as a full designer is not supported, a lot of the patterns do work. So I went, we'll see, and imported it. It looked like it worked. I was missing one column through that second bird. And it wasn't the bird being a little bit extra skinny that clued me in that there was a problem. It was this repeat here. And I absolutely was not ripping out about 3,000 stitches, because by the time I found the error that was like right up in here, I was all the way down in here. And I was like, rip all this out. Nope. My fabric was the right width, but a little too long, and I hadn't cut it down yet. So I flipped that baby around 180 degrees and started over. I did buy a little extra thread, so I think I'm good on thread. Then one of the groups was running last year a Halloween stitch along, Sal, and let's put this over here. I got it most of the way done. I was to about here and ran out of the orange. Then I had to get new orange and took me a while. And I got busy with other projects and haven't gotten back to it. So I still need to put in the little spider. Somebody did a ghost, and I'm probably gonna put the ghost in. And the cat needs a backstitch tail, and this needs the back stitching all finished. But it's mostly done. It's just like right in here that needs to be finished. So I had, that was my October piece, and family was looking forward to me finishing it in time for Halloween itself, and it didn't happen. And then in October, November, Shannon Christine Designs did a Christmas ornament club, and I started working on those. I still have quite a few to go. There's a total of 15, and I've completed one for a gift and 4 more, including the one so I completed this one, fully finished it, and sent it off as a gift, tied it to the top of the person's present, and then the post office didn't deliver it in time. But we have warm wishes, joy, peace, love, and merry and bright. And these are mostly done except for maybe a little bit of Kreinik and or some beads. I think on this one I needed one color of a pink thread that goes in here, and the store's been out of it for forever. So I was like, oh, I'll just work on some more until it shows up. Then the same designer who did the Harry Potter stitch along is doing 2 stitch alongs this year, and I, since my husband is the big Disney fan, I enjoy Disney. He's a fan. I would say it's Pirates first, then Disney. And since they go together, most of the time it's together. So I've been doing the stitch along. I got the first 2 months done, and then March I got started on it and fell by the wayside a little bit. I got busy on some other things and didn't do that one so much. Jump forward. So this is 32 count Belfast Crystal Da Vinci is the dye color. I got a lot of this from 123 Stitch or Facebook sellers. Then I was looking at a couple of temperature trees. I thought that would be fun to see how the temperatures in the Bay Area change over time. This is January. I've been keeping track of the temperatures, but I have not got it finished, or got it caught up. So I need to catch up a few months on that one. And then I also discovered Mill Hill kits, and I've started the Nativity series. I did the 3 Magi last year, and they went on our tree. I made them into ornaments. And then I've got the little drummer boy and Mary completed, and that is baby Jesus and Joseph. And they basically need, Joseph just needs beads, baby Jesus needs his back stitching and beads, and he'll be done. And I'm throwing things out of my bag, which gets us to last year, or no, one more. Last month I started my big project. I managed to get my hands on this pattern and looked at people's conversions, and last month in the middle of April I started, maybe it was closer to the beginning of April. Anyway, I started Lady Liberty, Lady of the Flag by Mirabilia. And I'm doing a cornflower blue conversion. And as you can see, I've gotten a good chunk of the bottom done. I dyed the fabric. I'd have to look up exactly what I used, but greens and yellows and possibly a tan base, because there's some tans in there. Just to give it a look of like she's standing on some grass. And that's 32 count opal Lugana for the base. So then May 1st of last year, I started, and this is all flippin' colors that are needed for every variation or change that he's picked so far, and even just the base set for this project. But I did, for my first, and that's upside down, first several days of Maynia last year, I started this, and I did all of the frame during Maynia the first couple of days, and then he previously mentioned what his, not what his preferred house is, because that's so not Ravenclaw. He's like, that's not the house Harry Potter was in. Yeah, well, that's the house you picked when I gave you the quiz. And then someone had designed a bit of a checkerboard, tartany background, and somebody else had used this R, someone had used the full eagle. And I kind of mishmashed them together. My background's Scottish, Irish, a bunch of other stuff, but I really am drawn to the Celtic ancestry that I have. I've always loved their music, the general culture, going to the Highland Games. And so this was a little bit of a way to, you know, mix the two of us in together a little bit. And then he did the whole quiz and he got the 3 broomsticks for letter 4, and he had, you know, chose his drinks and was like, I gotta have a fire whiskey, and it's Harry Potter, you have to have a butterbeer. And I went, okay. So stitched that, and then I really liked the idea of the quill, so I did the sugar quill 1/1 on this. Was that 1/1? No, that's just regular over 2. This is Ada, and I wasn't paying attention when I bought it. It's 20 count Ada. And it's great for the full stitches, not so hot for fractionals. I did the first one on 28 count, 2/2, and that one I enjoyed so much more when it came to fractional spaces. So I'm either modifying things to avoid fractionals, or I am toughing through it with a sharp needle instead of my ballpoint needles and just dealing. The next project I did last May, I decided to try a little bit of black work, and this one I didn't get very far. There's a lot I didn't get very far on. You know, one afternoon of a little bit of this or getting it started. But it's a black work that basically just says 221B. And it'll be about a bookmark size. I love Sherlock Holmes. So, needless to say, I did Sherlock Holmes. And I will try to insert photos wherever I can so that you see what the actual original is, because I didn't print any of those off. And that's being stitched 1/1 on 28 count Monaco. Then the same designer who did Harry Potter and Magic Kingdom, Sal, did some pattern conversions for an artist friend. And his friends got some really cool ideas. So I started all the things. The first design, the friend's name is Brian Kesinger Designs. And the first one was a set of like 4, and I picked the Reading Octopus. I started it, and I got a decent little start for one day, and then I found the fractionals. This is 22 count Hardanger. Fractionals aren't impossible on Hardanger. They're not as nice or as pleasant to deal with as doing it on something else. So I dyed a piece of Monaco. I'm gonna put the octopus on this. It's mostly purples, so it's gonna look like he's in the sea reading a book, or several books as it happens. Then my nephew has trouble with writing. So I have a piece that, if I buckle down and do it, will be ready for when he starts high school and has to do a lot more writing than he already has to do. It's a quote from Hamilton: "Pick up a pen, start writing with a pen in an inkwell." Simple, can go on his wall. This happens to be the piece that when I was tearing out my tent stitching, I guess I did get into the monkey. I mean, that's the back of the tent stitching. And some people might not think that's crazy, but when I couldn't get the needle through, I got really annoyed and frustrated with it. When I get annoyed and frustrated, I figure out a solution to change said frustration. This is my new one, doing full cross, and that's the back. It's still a little bit crazy because it's a HAED. It's got confetti, but it's not near as bulky as the 2/1 tent stitch that just was driving me crazy. And then, you know, I probably ripped out half of it and cut a tiny little hole and decided that with as tight as it was on this piece of fabric, I was not going to try to finagle it to make it fit by switching it around and starting on another corner. I was just going to get a new piece of fabric. So I did. And it's now become the basis for my nephew's writing encouragement. The next piece that I did, or I started, didn't get very far on. I got that much done. It's a Celtic knotwork in lavenders and greens and dark gray. And depending on my mood and how I feel, I'm planning on making 2 of them and then stitching, because it's a square, stitching it into a biscornu and having it be a pincushion on one of my many pincushion necessary surfaces. When I first started looking into doing Maynia last year, because I work in theater and theaters all closed during COVID, and I hadn't yet found a temporary part-time job, it's not so temporary anymore, but it's still part-time. So I hadn't found a job yet to change things up. I decided I was going to try to not spend a whole lot of money doing Maynia. So I started digging through all the boxes that I had of crafty things to see what I had. I found various random pieces of fabric that I'd picked up here or there. And I found some patterns, or rather some kits. One of which was the Christmas Village Ornaments by Dimensions. I did all the gridding on its day. It's heat soluble pen, and these are full coverage pieces, so I'm not too worried about it. And I started the top of one with blended threads. First time using blended threads was this piece. Then the next kit that I found, and this one I'm positive I bought, and then it got in a box and I forgot to do it, or I didn't have hoops or something of that nature, so I didn't do it. This is Frederick the Literate, and I know why I bought it. It's got a cat and books. If I have to pick a Disney thing to be excited about, it's Beauty and the Beast. And I get really excited about the time that the Beast opens the door to the library and you see all the books. Yeah, books. That's my guilty pleasure. So I got started. I got the top of the bookshelf. Decent chunk done. I've been informed that I need to change some of the names on the books. Don't remember to what. He'll have to tell me when I'm backstitching that. piece I also started in Maynia when I started planning my wedding. And the original pattern, I forgot to take it out of the lap stand. So the original pattern has this Celtic phrase, which I have to look every time to see what it says, but it's something about happiness. And my husband is Italian. So he was like, well, we need that one represents you. We need an Italian phrase to represent me. And I said, okay, tell me what you want and I'll tell you if it fits, because it's got to fit in here. And originally it was supposed to be the location that we got married, and then the date goes in between with some swirly gigs that look similar to this. I got halfway through stitching this, thought I was going to get it done at the end of March, before the end of March. I'm stitching away and he goes, hang on, does that say frittata? And I said, yes, here's the phrase you gave me. And he's like, something's wrong with that. It's about eggs, not marriage. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't speak Italian. I don't know Italian. I don't know what the colloquialisms are. So we consulted family. We consulted cross-stitch friends on the internet. We did research. And there's a whole giant word missing from the phrase. It won't fit. So we picked a different phrase that fits. And it's just as lovely. Actually, it's nicer than something about the egg is cracked. Kind of tough luck. Too late. Too bad. Anyway, picked a different phrase. And I was like, I don't know if I have, this is how much of the green silk dinky dye floss that I had left. And I was like, I don't know if I have enough to do the whole thing. Yeah, it's 6 lengths of floss, but they're cut short and it goes all the way across. So I got another skein of floss. And it's a good thing I didn't try, because they're just a shade different. Just enough that I probably would have noticed and nobody else. So now I have to rip all this out and put the new phrase and the date in with the new floss. And then this piece will be done. And I can tell him, okay, you want to practice framing? It's pinned and laced. Have fun with glass and framework. He's actually pretty excited about attempting something like that. But that's the sampler saga. Almost done. Gonna finish it in May, but yeah. And then, because he likes pirates and I like maps, I stumbled across the Ink Circles M.A.P. Sal just as it was finishing up. I think it stands for Map Your Own Adventure or Make Your Own Adventure. Map Adventure Plan. M.A.P. Something adventure. So I took a piece of 28 count Monaco, had some old tea, steeped the heck out of my tea, and 1/1, that's as much of the border as I got done in a day. It's going to be a long project because I haven't touched it since, but I'll touch it again this May. Then back to Mr. Brian Kesinger and the fractionals that I didn't pay attention to. He has Books Are My Treasure, Dragon. And I was like, oh, this piece of fabric's just awesome. And it is, it's cool. I've started it twice. I did the first one, was doing all the little fractionals, was hating it. So then I'm like, okay, I'll do it 2/2 or 3/2. I'll try it over 2. It just looks, this looks dainty and elegant. This does not. I didn't like either one. I didn't like this one for the stitching, having to do fractionals in Hardanger. And I didn't like this one because it makes it 11 count. And I already don't care too much for 14 count. Though I'm starting to get better. I'm better about it than I was as a teenager when I couldn't stand it at all. I'll still go 16 count before I, or rather 32/2 before I'll go 14. But on something with fractionals, I will do 28 count over 2. So, saying that, since I like those colors, I dyed myself a piece of 28 count Monaco. And I'm going to restart it on his birthday in May. And then, that was towards the end of May. So then, one of the things that I had signed up for in, I think, April was the stained glass Sal. It's a bunch of Disney characters done as stained glass windows. And the release date was May 15th. And I was planning on spending the whole weekend doing like 4 days on this piece because I was like, I'm gonna really enjoy it. And my fabric didn't come in because I wanted to do it as a triptych. So I bundled each of the characters in the whole Sal, which is like a 3-year Sal, 2-year Sal, something like that. Bundled them up into groups, either by movie or sometime, so like 3 of the characters are the Corpse Bride, Jack, and Sally from Nightmare. You know, obviously the Corpse Bride is from a completely different film than Jack and Sally, but they have the same director and same kind of feel. And there were some other films in the series or characters in the series where they didn't have a partner, if you will. And so I bundled them together. So this one I called Renegade Princesses, and it's Moana. No, it's not Moana. Sorry. It's Mulan. So this is Mulan, Pocahontas, and Merida. And in their stories, they were a bit of a renegade. Other people might have called them rebellious or headstrong. I went through the synonym dictionary looking for a word that wasn't quite so negative to describe the fact that they had personalities and beliefs that were well out of their time for women. Men, it was okay. Women, not so much. And so all three of them are going to be on this piece. So it's pretty wide piece. It ends up being square. The three together equals the height of them. And then I'm inserting a little art nameplate that has Renegade Princesses and then my initials and the year I started it and whatever year I finish it. So it's gonna be a little gold nameplate across the bottom. It cuts off a little bit of the design, but considering that's not even half of her skirt, proportionally, I think it would be okay. And then my final Maynia piece was once again a Brian Kesinger piece. And this is Steampunk Mermaid. And this one I was sensible and put it on a 28 count Lugana over 2. And I picked the fabric, and that's all I'd done. I did just a teeny tiny start. But I chose the fabric before I really started any of the other pieces that are crazy. Which leads us into Maynia for this year. So for this year, I have 12 pieces from last year that either I'm going to restart or they're just gonna get worked on. Then I plan to go to my whips and catch up, or at least make some progress on catching up. You know, maybe get another month stitched on my temperature sal, finish March, since by then I'll have May, so I'll be 2.5 months behind on the Magic Kingdom sal. Stitch on some of my Whip Go goals that I haven't quite completed. But, you know, I have approximately 10 whips in the pile. And so that puts me at 22 days. And I may not do something every day. I may do more than one whip in a day. For example, this one, the stained glass sal, got drawn on Whip Go this month. So I may put several days in to knock out the Whip Go goal. Not just the day that I started it. If I have any days left after filling in with whips that I want to start or do, or not start, want to work on, despite them not being started in May, I do have a few new starts in the wings. I have the Fairy Tale Sampler. Which I have a piece of, trust me, I looked at the pattern to see if there was any serious fractionals, and there's not. But I have a piece of pea soup green, which looks great with the threads. They're all shades of pinks and blues. And then gold Kreinik. But that's gonna look good together. So that's one option. And then I have a little one. and I haven't gone through my fabric to figure out what I'll do with this, but it's give, and part of my dilemma on what I'll do to stitch this is that they have it chartered for 10 count. I don't think I'll go anywhere close to 10 count for this piece. But I've got this lovely autumn palette of flosses. To go with it. Those are the called for colors. So that's a possibility, especially if I find fabric in my stash that I like with it. Another one that I need to find fabric in my stash for, which is not a problem. If nothing else, just need to decide what color base. I've got some whites that I can dye. I have Teresa Kogut's Land That I Love sampler, and I have the weeks, and based on the stash of DMC that I've collected, the DMC numbers that are listed, I'm sure I have. And if I don't have them, I will be popping onto the Cody Hoover site and seeing what their recommended alternatives are and how well they work with the design. The next possibility I have is, and I'm not going to drive you crazy by trying to get this out. We'll just deal with trying to avoid glare. I just have the centerpiece, which was alternatively made into like a little envelope bag. And it's the Letters from Mom, Sal, that Jeanette Douglas designed. And the whole piece is beautiful, but I really liked the envelope. So I've got the threads, and I have a piece of 36 count Phantom Edinburgh. See if I can get this all on here. Problem is, I think I'll make multiples. So I got extra threads, but it's a lovely palette. And I may have to, you know, investigate the darker ones and substitute in. But overall, I like that darker palette than was originally done. And I think my fabric's big enough to do 3 of them, something crazy. And then I get 3 more. So then I stumbled across the Owl Forestry's new Sal, which is Alice in Wonderland. They have a full color version and they have a 3-color version. And I looked at their thread packs and they kept being out of stock. And I thought about the length of time it would take to get them and went, let's see what I have in my stash that's variegated that might work for what they have in their different plans. So the 3-color design, they have an ecru, and it says right in the description of that thread that They literally don't dye it. It's just DMC ecru. So I got DMC ecru, was in my stash. And then I was looking at my stash and I had picked up, just for its name, some Threadworks Pirate Booty. And they had a mossy green was their, I guess, primary color. They had 20 yards, 24 yards, something like that, worth of skeins in the thread kit. And these are 20 yards, so I probably don't even need the 3 that I have. But, so I've got that. And then they had a red blend. And I didn't have anything that was just reds and pinks, like their blend was. But I did have Firebane by Dying for Cross Stitch. And in Alice, there's a whole thing about painting the roses. So I figure I'll cut this so that part of it's more of the black end and part of it's more of the red end. And worst comes to worst, I only end up using the red end. But depending on the design, they've released part 1, and part 1 is an arbor with a bench and roses. So depending on what all is going on, I'll, maybe add another couple colors, pull from stash, create my own little palette. But for Alice in Wonderland by Owl Forestry, I have a blue, Azure Blue Murano color Lugana, and those threads. Then something that I had picked up and put together last year and then just never started it, came out of the pile as an option to start. Come on, okay. And that's this Peacock Biscornu. And when I got it, I got everything except maybe the Mill Hill beads. No, I got the Mill Hill beads too. That's what I did. I was like, I have DMC. So I got the fabric they recommended, which is Summer Sky Jovelin, and I got the Mill Hill beads, and then I pulled DMC from stash to make it. And then I didn't get to it, which is fine. Comes around this year. It was one of the first that I pulled out of my pile. And last but not least, I finally got an alternative. This one was hard to kit. Not because it's a difficult design, but because DMC no longer makes the memory thread, which is all over the place. It's in Lizzie's curls, it's parts of the bow, it's all the flowers Darcy's holding. And I was baffled as to why memory thread was so difficult to find until I found a post that said, it's been discontinued. Here's some alternatives. So, we enjoy the Minion movies. I love Pride and Prejudice. Darcy and Lizzie, Minions. And that's a Brooks book design. And that is my whips and plans for this year. So those are the pieces that I may start. The official Maynia plan is the date that I started something last year, which I have 12 projects. It gets at least 1 hour and 100 stitches. My average is usually in the 90 to 120 stitches, depending on if I'm doing color block. So I figure 1 hour and 100 means that if it's going slow, I'll stick with it longer because I gotta meet the 100. If I'm stitching fast and hit the 100 and I haven't hit the hour, well then that's more stitches in it than less. And that's to basically say, I'm tired of this project, I want to do something else. Generally, I get going on a project and I work on it for several hours. So I'm going to spend days on those. Last year, I did the Harry Potter New Start for my second one. And then a friend of mine, I found out, had gotten her miracle kidney. She'd been put on standby several times, and then found out that, oops, not this time. And so this particular, very beginning of May, she got the call, she went in, next thing we know, she's got her new kidney. And so I wanted to do a little congratulatory, celebratory piece for her. And so I spent the 3rd through the 7th or something like that working on this piece and getting it finished. So I have the 1st of May is the Harry Potter piece. Then I've got a gap of days when I have nothing that's still a work in progress. So I'm gonna try to knock out some work on my current whips that are not May start whips and get those a little more caught up. I have 10 of them, so it's not quite enough to do one a day, or that's actually too many to do one a day, not enough days. But I can get 4 or 5 of them some significant, some work in. Possibly get those 2 mill hills finished with the beading. And then as I have empty days, I'll evaluate, do I want to work on a whip that's not already on the plan? Do I want to put in another couple of days on one of the May whips? And if not, then I've got 7 starts. I've got 5 fully kitted and 2 that need me to go raid my fabric stash and determine what it is that I'm going to stitch it on. But other than that, I've got 7 possible new starts, and I'll slot them in where I determine, or they will wait for me for another day. They will eventually get started. They just might not get started this month. So that's my whips, my Maynia plans, and so long as COVID keeps the theater shut down, I will probably, at least for May, try to do once a week with an update of what I've stitched on. Otherwise, especially once theater starts, it could, can't promise. When I'm on a show, you have Mondays off. So Monday is get some extra sleep, wash all your clothes, go grocery shopping, get some more sleep, and then Tuesday you start in again. And you may do 60, 70 hours. It's the Bay Area, so, and we cover a 70 mile plus area. So I could be driving 3-4 hours round trip commutes. The nighttime commute's not so bad, but it's still usually an hour. And then the morning commute, depending on the time of day, I sometimes have to leave 3 hours before I need to report into work. So it just cuts into everything. And leaves Monday to do everything that you need to do to be able to make it through the rest of the work week. The upside is, unless it's a long running show, most of the shows are a week or two. So you do that crazy schedule for a week or two, and then you're off for sometimes 2 or 3 weeks. Depending on how available other people are and how quickly they need your skill set. So, you know, you get some downtime. You use it to catch up on projects that you have set aside, no matter what kind of projects. It could be housework projects, it could be remodel projects. You know, you catch up on things as you have the ability, have the time, and then when the next show call comes, you have 4 days to a week to get prepped for it and get everything you're working on to a stopping point, and then you jump back into the theater world, and that's all you do for 24/7 for 6 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Since COVID's shut everything down for so long, knowing the basics of how theaters book out their shows, I expect it may be a slow startup. The governor said smaller theaters can start having events in June, but that means that the theaters have to contact everybody that was supposed to be here last year and see when they can fit them in, you know. And if they've closed the show because of COVID, then they may not be coming back, period. So then, you know, it's one of those things. Just because the governor said we can start having shows the middle of June does not mean work's gonna start back up the middle of June. It really is dependent on how soon theaters can rebook the shows that they canceled and or find new shows to put into the season, and also how quickly they think the public's gonna go back to watching shows. You know, it's live entertainment. People may not come, and if people aren't coming, they're not gonna book as many shows to come into town, which means less work. So we'll see how it goes. It may take its time to get back, but it will come back. The recession showed us that people will still go see shows, maybe not as frequently, but they will still go see shows. So work will come back, and in the meantime, I have a part-time job that is happy to have me stick around, and I may juggle 2 jobs for a while once theater comes back. We'll see. We will take it one week, one day at a time. But the moral, the crux of that story is that once theater starts back up, even if I have managed to do a weekly or bi-weekly video up until that point, it could be, depending on the time of year, months before I get back, or it could be frequent. It just really depends on my work. And I'll try to give a heads up if things are going in that direction. But stay safe. Spend time with your family. Life is precious. We've lost a loved one during this time. and it was, wasn't COVID related, but COVID played an impact on how able we were to spend time with them towards the end, and also how we were able to celebrate their life. And it wasn't necessarily the way the family would have wanted it. It was still beautiful, but COVID has made life challenging, especially in those fleeting moments that we have. And so cherish the moments that you do have with your loved ones in whatever way you're able to. I will see you next time.